Welcome to the Hired by Passion podcast. I'm your host, Marcel, and I will be interviewing artists and entrepreneurs on how they were able to escape the 9-to-5 and turn their passion into an income. Hello and welcome to the Hired by Passion podcast. I have a great interview for you today. Known by many as one of the top drummers in Canada, I see him as the Acadian Dave Grohl. I have with me Danny Bourgeois. Danny is grateful to be living his dream by living off of his music and his craft, and he will no doubt do so for a long time. Today, he is the proud owner of Pumpk'n Patch Recording Studio in Memramcook, New Brunswick, where he's an accomplished recording engineer, producer, as well as a session drummer. And for the first time, live on location, that's where we recorded the Hired by Passion podcast. You would think that recording in the studio, you would have great quality, but unfortunately, I didn't really know how to use my recorder as well as I thought I did, so the levels were a bit off. It does sound a bit wonky, but I think you get used to it fairly quickly. So without any further ado, here is Danny Bourgeois. I'm here with Danny Bourgeois, and I wanted to talk to you because you've done so much and you've been able to live from your passion for a while now. So I'd like to ask you, first off, like I ask everyone else, if you meet someone for the first time and they ask you, what do you do? What's your answer to that?
For me, I guess a musician's my first instinct. Why I'm doing this since I was a kid was obviously to play music. So that's always my go-to answer. Yeah. I'm a musician, and a lot of people say, what? You live from doing that? You know what I mean? That's always that big question mark that surrounds, the life as a musician. At the end of the day, it's like, okay, well, so you always get that feeling. So what's your other job?
Exactly. And you must get that a lot.
Oh, all the time. You know what I mean? Or if they don't come out and say it, you feel that way. You know what I mean? I think it's just kind of the cliche or the stereotype of perspective on a musician. It's always perceived as like, oh, well, it's a hobby. So obviously, so what do you do to really make a living and earn some money to live? It's always the question, right? But it's always nice it's like, no, this is what I do,
okay.
Yeah.
So how did that dream start? I know that you've been playing music for a long time, and did you think that you were going to be able to make a living from music when you were growing up?
I don't think really early on was it a dream to be able to, wake up every day and actually do music and earn a living from it. For sure, it was always a dream. Obviously, starting it was just a passion to play. I just loved music. It was around the house a lot, obviously, with my family being very musical. So for me, it was a given in a sense, like I got to do this because I want to do it, and I enjoyed it, and I liked being around musicians and jams and whatever family parties that were going on where there was music going on. But I think as the more you grow and you indulge into starting to do gigs, and then you're making a bit of money off of doing gigs, it definitely starts opening up doors. Like, well, geez, I wonder if I could do this more full time.
Yeah.
But that came on later on in life for sure, because I started very young. Obviously, at the age of 5 is when I got my first drum kit. Could I play? Not really good. It took a good year and a half for me to probably even play a drum beat, where my brother could actually play, and they thought they bought the drum kit for the wrong kid. But anyways, beyond that, it was just for the passion of just doing music. So it came a little later on, obviously, where the dreams start kind of vetting in and say, okay, well, I'd really like to do this as a living. And obviously, at a young age, obviously, too, in your teens, obviously, we all wanted to be rock stars because
exactly.
we had people that we idolized and bands that we looked up to. And for me, it was like, I want to do that. So for me, it was like, Van Halen and Kiss and all these bands that I was into, and we looked up to them, in a sense of like, that's life I want to do. I want to be able to play and tour the world and see things and live from, your passion. I mean, that's always key, I think, at the end of the day.
So do you remember a time where it kind of clicked for you? It's like, wait, this might work out.
I think once it started, obviously when you're getting going, you get your bands in your teens and stuff like that. So obviously it's more of a band thing. I think once it started getting to the point where the phone would ring for somebody that needed a drummer, I wasn't part of their band or whatever the case may be, but somebody needed a fill-in. And for me, I was like, oh, okay, so they're going to hire me to go play a gig, not necessarily join a band, but just go play a gig because either their musician can't do the show and for circumstances or whatnot. But you're like, okay, cool. So you're going to learn material and get paid for it. But it was kind of like the more of that I started doing it. And also once you start, playing in different styles. So you aren't just playing rock. So you might get called for a country gig, or you might get called for a rock gig or a pop gig or whatever. So I started noticing in my head, I'm thinking, well, the more diversified I can be musically, obviously is going to be key. Because if I just stay on one path and just do that, well, that's fine. Like, let's say I want to be a rock star and I want to be the lead singer of a band and I'm a rock singer. That's one thing. But as a musician, it started clicking with me that, I could, maybe earn a living as long as I could be versatile and be able to adapt in different situations. So depending whatever the style of music, whatever called for, and be open to learn that and do the work that, that, hey, maybe I could do more of it, where if you're just in one band, well, if that band's not playing, you're not working. So my faith was of playing or doing music was also relied and depended on the other musicians I was playing with. So let's say the other musician didn't feel like playing this weekend. He wanted the weekend off, but I'm gung-ho. I want to play. I want to work. You're kind of at the mercy of, well, if two guys want to do it, the other two don't. Well, I guess we're going to be off, you know? So being hired, like I said, getting the phone calls is more of like a hired gun kind of thing. I almost felt like I felt more in control of how much I wanted to work. If I wanted to work and do 300 shows a year, then I would make myself available to do that. If I want to play less, then I can play less. But I felt I had more control of that destiny. And I mean, so, and also kind of open up the door of like what direction I wanted to go with.
So I know that you started playing very early on. You were being a studio musician when you were 13, 14 years old, right?
Yeah, it's just getting my first little sessions, yeah.
So when you were in high school, were you planning a career? Were you thinking of going to study something? Or were you thinking at that point that, no, I'm going to be a musician for my career?
No, yeah, definitely for sure. I want to be a musician. It's guaranteed. That was embedded. Like by that point in high school, it's for sure. Like I just wanted to do music. Obviously, when I got home from school, it wasn't studying, and you know, I don't encourage kids not to study, but it was just such a passion, just to play and learn and just absorb it, take it all in. So you know, it was day and night for me. It was just always surrounded by music all the time. You know, so. And
you grew up in a musical family, so
yes.
I imagine that they were fairly supportive of you, or did they know what it was like to be a musician and said, no, you have to go to university, you have to go to college?
Exactly. Well, yeah, because my dad's a phenomenal guitar player and a fabulous musician, and still, you know, he had his share of touring in his 20s and all that stuff, and obviously, you know, had us, you know, me and my brother as kids, so obviously, you know, he held that job on top of, you know, doing music. So, but they're always supportive, but in a sense of like, okay, well, if this is what you guys want to do, that's great, but never discourage, you know, the fact of like you may want to plan B or that kind of stuff. And what most parents would. I mean, I got 2 kids too, so I want to, you know, depending what path they're going to take later on in life is I want to make sure that their education's there too. I'm not going to discourage them in doing their passion, and it worked too as a leveraging too, because if ever I failed at something, either math course or English course, it was easy for me to bring up my notes. My parents would just say, okay, you're putting away your drums, and until your notes start going up, then they're going to stay put away. So it was kind of, the music was still a leveraging for them to kind of say, look, you either got to bring up your notes or, you know, you're just not going to be able to play because we're putting them away. And they knew how much I loved it. So, and it worked. Sure enough, you know, get back to studying again, get back into, at the end of the day, I wanted to do well. So I could actually get my drum kit back and start playing, you know. So
sure.
They did that many times when I was 10 and 12 years old, guaranteed. Oh, yeah.
They still valued education, even if you were...
Totally, oh yeah. I mean, I didn't go to university after I obviously graduated in grade 12, and, you know, and then that was it. Once I graduated, I was kind of off working and doing what I'm doing. But it's not necessarily like that for necessarily everybody, you know. And if I said, look, I'm going to go to university and do mechanics or carpenter or whatever, they would have supported that too. My parents were always very supportive of, you know, the direction that we went in, you know, at the end of the day.
So when you graduated high school, I know you worked at a music store for a while. And was that in a way to stay in the industry to be able to supplement the income you were making doing music?
Yeah, for sure. Because obviously at that time, obviously I was 18 years old or whatnot. So I mean, everybody knows what the pay scale is in the bars. When you're playing bar gigs, you know, you can make all right. It depends what band you're playing with, how much, if it's corporate or whatever the case may be. But for me, I think it was to kind of help supplement that too, right? Because on top of playing, I was starting to get into this whole recording thing that I'm doing now, obviously. So it was kind of a community thing for me too, like being at the music store. I mean, you run into a lot of musicians. It was also a great way to kind of network and maybe get another gig from that. Just from I could have sold the guitar to somebody. Next thing you know, you're chatting away and hey, my buddy needs some drum tracks done on a thing or whatever. You know what I mean? I think one thing always leads to the other. I think with every door, you got to kind of look at it as an option and an opportunity. So for me, I needed to work obviously because I wanted certain things in life, and whether it's buy gear, you know, I wanted to have my own house. Obviously, you know, we were living on our own. We're touring. We were with a band at that point too. So, you know, weekend warriors or whatever you want to call it, you take off on the road for 3-4 days at a time. But when that's done, I still needed to work at the end of the day to make a living, you know, so obviously the music store came in handy there, but in a field that I still loved. I was still around instruments, still around musicians, still around that, like I said, that whole community was very important to me.
So people would assume that if you want to be a musician, you have to keep working at your art. You have to be the best musician, the best guitar player, the best drum player you can. What role do you think that networking comes into play when it is to make a living being a musician?
I think it's huge. You could see a musician out there really doing well, you know, making a good living. And there's musicians out there that far as technically is how they are capable to play their instrument are twice as good, if not 10 times as good. And I'm sure some people are scratching their head saying, how did he get that gig? And why is he making $400 or $500 a night? I should make $400 or $500 a night, or whatever the case may be. I think networking, being very personable, being open, your attitude towards life in general. So yes, you have to be good at your craft, because if you're going to sell yourself in a sense of like, hey, are you able to do the job? And you say yes, and then I show up and I'm not able to do the job, even though I'm a nice guy. Well, it's like, okay, well, we're going to have to get the guy that's going to do the job. But they are people that are very capable of doing the jobs, but sometimes they'll hit that brick wall because they don't know how to network, socialize. You kind of got to be a chameleon too. You got to be open to suggestions. You got to be open to, sometimes people saying, that ain't so good, and you got to swallow it, or whatever the case may be. But networking is very, very huge, because I always found off of one gig, there's always another gig that comes off it. And if you're a very personable person and very easy to get along with, and you're a team player, number one, team player in anything, if you can do that, yes, you still have to be good at your craft, but you're gaining that much more opportunities and job opportunities, because people want to work with people that are team players. People want to be surrounded with that. I know me, I want to be around people that are happy. I want to play with people that enjoy what they do, because I played in many bands. Sometimes I played in bands where it's like, holy mac, you get that one person in the band is just like dead weight. You know what I mean? It's just like great player, but at the end of the day, negative energy can just break it, right? Yeah. So I think it's very, very important,
And you are a very social guy. You're fun to be around. You're smiling a lot. So was it natural for you to be in that networking scene, or did you work on things to get that done?
It was kind of natural. I kind of get that. And I think it's just from our family and our upbringing, because my dad's a very social guy too. And again, I think being around that environment, even at a young age, like I said, my parents would practice, and they'd practice at our house. Obviously, is where the practices would happen. So I'd already be kind of socializing and hanging out with like the bandmates that are in my dad's band, right? Or vice versa. I always tend to be around people that are older than me, not necessarily because it was forced upon me or anything. It's just, or by choice. It just happened to be. So you just, you end up, you're talking, talking shop. I used to love going to the music store when I was 7 or 8 years old, just to go there to hang out and talk to the musicians that were out there gigging that I was looking up to. You know what I mean? Like, oh man, someday I want to be able to play in, just play in a bar. At that point, it was great. It wasn't so much of like, okay, I got to tour the world right now, but I was 8 years old, but I just liked being around that area of talking and learning and absorbing, and like I said, that whole community of stuff. It's just
like music is definitely something that can be for someone who's introverted, can be an out, can be something he would want to do. So let's say someone is listening and he's a very introverted person, has a hard time going out and being smiley and socializing with everyone. Do you think there's anything he could do to try to increase his odds of, finding musicians to play with, or finding gigs or things like that? Like, how would an introverted person go into the world?
I think, especially now with the social network, I mean, you can kind of see where shows are going on, but I think it's try to get out, and it's easy to kind of stay in your little world and play and all that kind of stuff. But I think by going out and supporting other local acts and supporting other people that got music, just by being around that, at the end of the day, people are going to say, oh, you can go 2-3 shows. Next thing you know, somebody recognizes you from seeing you at another show. Oh yeah. So what do you think of the band? Oh, hey, I think you're great, or whatever the case may be. But I think kind of going and supporting the local scene, just being out there, being in the middle of it is very important. You know what I mean? Being a phenomenal musician, but staying in your basement, you'll just always stay in your basement. Sometimes it takes a lot of work. Sometimes it takes a lot of courage for that introvert person to kind of get out there. But I think some people think, I'm just going to practice in my basement and become really good. And after that, I'm going to go out and I'm going to play the stages. Well, if nobody knows who you are, or nobody actually played with you, or nobody socialized with you, why is it all of a sudden, what is it that they're going to say? Oh, there's this guy, I guess, in his basement that's really, really good. Let's get him in our band. You know what I mean? Like, I know there's YouTube and there's videos and all that kind of stuff, but I think it's very important to get out there. Whether you're actually playing or not, just go out to a show, be a spectator in the show. And by being a spectator at a show, you're obviously going to end up schmoozing with somebody, talking with somebody. Oh, hey, I'm a musician, I'm a guitar player, I write, blah, blah. And within another week or two, you could be co-writing with another musician. Yeah. You know what I mean? And from there, it's like, oh, wow, I really like what you do. I really dig that. Hey, well, look, we got an open mic here at this cafe. Would you be up for coming to sing some of your tunes? Like, everything leads to another thing. And I mean, and from that just fuels you. All of a sudden, you're feeling good. You're like, oh, wow, like, I really enjoyed that. I went and played at this open mic cafe. I showed my tunes. I'm an introvert. I was always at my house. I finally got out. People tend to like it. I might want to go and record some of this stuff and make it available in people's hands. So every little step tends to fuel and make you want to do more of it versus just, I'm going to become super good at my craft. Well, being a super good hockey player in your ice rink in your backyard, if you're not going to even go play at a hockey rink with, just pick up with anybody, well, that's all you're going to do. So I think it's very important to make yourself visible in getting out there.
Okay. You find that, like, interestingly enough, some people get discovered on YouTube though right now. You can do it in your basement, record it, put it out. So do you think that's maybe a route that people can take, or do you think it's still kind of being out in the local industry is easier to get to meet people? And
I say, why not do both? I think YouTube is great for that, and I discover stuff all the time. Like, you see some great players, but the one thing, if I see you out in a bar, or if I see you out at a show, I can actually physically touch you in a sense. I can physically talk to you. You know what I mean? It's like, you showed me a video. That's great. Where do you live? Like, are you in Breton? Are you in Toronto? Or was this video filmed? You know what I mean? It's like, yeah, I can text you and say, oh, hey, I really like what you do. Join my band. Oh, sorry, man, I'm in Seattle. Oh, too bad. Too bad you're not in Moncton. You know what I mean? So it's irrelevant, but it's just, I think there's a market. It's definitely for sure. It can help. I mean, there's tons of YouTube channels people got, musicians, singers. It's a great way to kind of have people, I think, people beyond your community that you live in, which it's a great tool. So let's say I did a drum video tonight. Well, that's great. People that would have seen me play around here is one thing, but somebody in LA that didn't see me, or somebody or whatever the case may be. So having a YouTube video kind of just opens you up to the world. Somebody in Brazil is watching your video, and that's cool, in a sense like that. But if you want to work and actually make money, earn, well, you got to build something up, unless I'm Pepsi and you got millions and millions of views, and I want to put my advertisement before your thing and pay you boatloads of money, which I don't know if that happens, because even now on iTunes, people get barely paid. So
yeah, I guess you can always reach out a bit. If it's hard to reach out in person, start reaching out online. Go on YouTube, send a message to that person who put a video, and often they reply. I remember I was watching two girls play the harp. I thought it was amazing. Sent them a message. I think what you're doing is amazing. Continue great work. And they replied. Like, I talked with them, and they have like millions of views, right? And they're still interacting with everybody who's sending them a message. So I thought that was really interesting to see that sometimes you think these people are outside of your reach when really they want to connect with people. Like,
they want to connect with people. I think it's just how to do it. But that's why I say sometimes go support your local talent. Instead of being jealous that others are out there playing or whatever the case, go out there and watch and be part of that circle. Because I find some people that are really good, again, going back to YouTube, like, I could be really good and put a video and get tons of good comments and all that kind of stuff. But a lot of times you can take that same player, put them on a stage, and it's a different ballgame, because that's, now I'm in front of people. Now I got to interact with other musicians. So my answer is still, at the end of the day, is get out there, fail, get out there, play in public. There's still no better way than playing live. And how are you ever going to play live if you're never seen live? You know what I mean? I could be good playing to my drum track, my click track music, and look at me, I got gospel chops up the yang, playing drum fills up the yang, which is great. But actually earn a living doing that, or as a singer, whatever the case may be, it's like, you got to get out there. Bottom line, I think it's very, very important. Make yourself, as hard as, like I said, some people are introvert, they can't get out there. Well, I'm telling you, if you're going to stay like that, you're just going to find it a lot harder to deal with doing that. You know what I mean? So it's, I don't know, it's like, you got to get out there and touch people and meet people. I think it's very, very important. I'm not declining doing the YouTube thing. Still do that, but do both. Why not do both?
Cool. So you have a big recording side to your thing as well. Not only are you a musician, but you have a studio, and that you've been recording many bands from the area. Yep. So how did that come about? Was that something you were passionate about as well, or was it a way to kind of maybe make a bit more income in the music industry that you were passionate about?
No, I was always intrigued about production, I guess, albums, and, obviously your favorite albums that you listen to, it's the music is what gets you. But with that music, there's the engineers behind it that kind of take that music and make it become alive and make it come vibrant. This behind the scenes, the people that make some of those albums that are just magical. It's like, yes, the band wrote the great song and they performed it well, but sometimes people don't realize, without maybe that producer, or maybe without that mixer that mixed that tune just perfectly. Not saying that you would not have liked the song, but maybe because of that, the song came and got you even more because how it was mixed. Like, I was always intrigued about how albums were recorded and the productions on it. And that came a little bit later, but how it started actually was because me and my brother had a 4-track when we were really young, and we just recorded for ourselves, you know what I mean? Just to try to make our albums, our little recording sound as good as what you buy in the store. But when I was 14, I actually got hired by a local band that wanted to do a demo and said, hey, I guess you got a 4-track. Can you come and record our band? So I didn't necessarily know what I was doing. I mean, I was just, again, I was around it because my dad and them had a band. I'd go set up shows with them all the time. I knew a little bit about sound. So I was just kind of hopped into it feet first, not really knowing exactly where I was going, but I was open to learn. I was open to try, open to actually get paid to go record a band. I think it was probably $400 for the whole album or whatever it was, or EP. But at that time, at 14, they're trusting me to, mic up their instruments and get some sounds and record their project.
Did you ever feel the imposter syndrome? Like, who am I to be recording these guys? You're 14 years old. And
sometimes, yeah. Oh, definitely for sure. Because you're thinking, well, why don't they just go to a recording studio, at the end of the day? But through friends, and they knew, a couple of them I knew in the band. And again, socializing, personable, you enjoy being around that person, you enjoy their music, same thing. Oh, hey man, you're a cool hang or whatever. Would you be up for recording the band?
Were you scared? Like, were you scared of failure or?
Scared of putting out, scared of failure in a sense of like, again, because it was so new to me, like, am I going to delete a track? Am I going to record over something? Or like when I come to mix, is it going to sound good? Because they're paying you for it, right? Exactly. And you're just hoping that the product that you give them, that they're going to be like, wow, this is great, or it could be like, maybe we should have went to a studio, you know what I mean? Because at that point, I was recording in their basement, in their jam spot. You're just bringing some recording gear in there and let's go, But that was, I think, a point for me to kind of get my feet wet into it and just jump in head first and hope for the best. And good came out of it because it actually turned out pretty good at that time back in the late 80s there. And I mean, there wasn't really much unless you had lots of money to record, to go to a real studio. Like that was it. Like people were doing tapes. It was all on cassette, right? Yeah. So, but it was a band that was obviously known. They're playing the university circuits and all that kind of stuff. They put out the album. It was like, oh, who did this? So and so far. And people was like, it's a good recording, So from that, I ended up getting more little work of those little demos again. Other bands like, we'd like to do a 3-song demo to get gigs. So I was kind of getting in that little world, of doing that kind of stuff.
And now you have your full-blown studio here. Yeah. Was it a difficult decision to say that I'm going to invest money now, serious amounts of money into something that could make or break me in the sense? Because if this fails, like you've invested.
Yeah. I think so. At a certain point, it's for sure, because obviously during this time, like once I started working at the music store, like I said, I worked there for, 15 years, and it was great again, because the community and the staff that I was working with was awesome. I had an awesome boss for the 15 years, which was great. Cause I never felt that he ever restricted me of doing music. So if I had to leave for 2 weeks and go on the road, I left and went on the road for 2 weeks, and I came back and still had my full-time gig. So it was kind of the best of both worlds. But I guess later on in life, for sure, like once I started getting into, okay, I think I'm going to start buying some gear. And again, when I started getting into it to really start buying gear to record, it was still kind of more for self-use, because either the band I was playing in at the time, we wanted to record it now, and we're like, because I played in a band where I went in the studio and we blew $25,000 and recorded an album, and now you got to try to sell albums to pay the $25,000 album that you recorded, yada yada. So with this other band, obviously, we just kind of thought, well, maybe let's try doing it ourselves. And me and my brother were kind of like, we always did it anyways. And there were some things that we didn't like about, even after spending $25,000 on an album, we still weren't necessarily happy with the outcome. We're like, it could have sounded better, could have been this. Whatever the case, you're always tone chasing. You're always looking for that. So I started buying gear really for self-indulgent, I guess, for myself and doing our own album. So we recorded one of our own albums. From there, after that, I start, getting people are getting interested into, oh, hey, would you be interested in recording my album? Whatever. So, Tracy Starr album came about and all that kind of stuff. So from then, I think after doing the Tracy Starr album is probably what opened up the door in a sense of like, geez, I'd like to do more of this. And, because again, I was still working at the music store. So I'm doing a 50-hour work week there, and then working, at the time I had the studio in my basement. I was living in Riverview back at the time. So we put out our album, start working on the Tracy Starr. And then from that, let's just, again, and then you talk to people. It's like, oh yeah, I guess you're recording these guys. And again, from the music store, you're running into people, you're talking, you get a studio. So the music store, again, it was a very great networking aspect for that thing, because people would see me, touch me, not just I'm this guy that's in the virtual world that I can text. I could literally strike up a conversation with somebody and talk to them. Yeah. It's like, oh, well, I got a band out in Miramichi that's great, and they're looking for a place to record, and I happen to have some samples with me. Well, let's go over to the studio corner. I'll play you some of my stuff. Sure enough, you end up getting more work. So from there, I think is where kind of start opening up the door, where I was like, I'd really like to. I was starting to really fall in love with the production end of things, I guess, at the end of the day. And the more that I was getting better at it, or whatever the case, again, chasing sound, wanting to get better, try to put better quality products all the time, and try to, work my way up where you're working with, bands and musicians that, that are as well respected, so that you feel lucky that you get the chance to work with them too, right? So it's like, but yeah, it's definitely a build up. It got scary more more scary, I think, more towards the end when I kind of like, again, working 50 hours a week, doing 30 hours here at the studio. And we moved out here to Memramcook, where I actually built an actual recording studio next to the house. Keep in mind, I was still working at the store, but the day where I had to say, okay, well, if I want to do this full time, the only way to really do something full time is I'm going to have to leave something, It was tough because, again, I had to leave a job that I was at for 15 years, which I had an awesome boss that nurtured and supported what I did musically. But at the end of the day, it wasn't so much about the people. The people were always great. But at the end of the day, if I wanted to do more of this, I had to make myself more available to do this. And that's you're always going to get at that crossroad at some point where you're like, okay, well, when you pull a plug and you say, that's it, I quit. Like, there's no UI, there's no nothing.
Yeah.
There's nothing. You just built a new home and a new studio. Like, it was scary because literally within 3 months, if nothing panned out, I could have just said, okay, let's put the for sale sign on the front line because I can't afford the payments because I didn't record nothing, or the bands that said they're going to come and record it, maybe pull the plug. So there was a lot of that going on because I had 3 albums lined up. And with that in my mind was like, okay, I'm taking a risk. And with any success, there has to be risk somewhere. You know what I mean? In life, whether it's music, whether it's you're going out on a limb because you're going to be the next builder of building a subdivision, whatever, there's risk somewhere. The ones that succeed are going to take that risk, you know what I mean? And you have to accept the fact that you might fail, and that's always scary. It is. So for me, it's like, okay, I got 3 albums. Well, I got 3 albums that they said they're going to come record. I'm lined up, but they can pull the plug. So I went on that as quitting my job. I'm like, okay, I'm going to quit my job, and I'm just going to hope after I'm done those 3 albums, there's going to be more albums coming in to record, and that's scary.
Was it organic? Did you just build it and they came, or was there a lot of marketing? Did you have to learn about marketing?
No, it was very organic, actually. It was, and still to this day, and maybe I should, but I never did any advertising in a sense of like, okay, I should do a radio advertised or on Facebook, pay for advertising, because you can, and you put yourself in the sponsored stuff. But it was very organic. Again, word of mouth, being out there, being in the public, and still while doing the studio stuff, don't get me wrong, I was still playing, gigging out there. So the fact that I was out there, again, whether you're in a bar, whether you're at a cafe, being out there, being, in people's surroundings was very, very important.
Okay.
And word of mouth, if you did a good job and you worked hard to try to achieve, levels, you have to set levels for yourself too. You have to set yourself a bar, like, okay, I got to get this project. I want this to be this level. If not, I didn't succeed or whatever, and that's very important, because if you go above and beyond for your client and they were happy, then why would they talk bad about it? They're going to talk to their friends and their musician friends. Oh, you want to work with these guys? Go see this guy. So yeah, it's very, very important.
So were there times where you were kind of wondering, is this going to work out? Or you seem to say that it kind of organically that it worked out, but what kind of roadblocks did you hit that you had to go through?
There's still roadblocks, because at the end of the day, it's like it happened organically. But I think when you work for yourself or your business, there's always those times. It's like, okay, well, I had a good year this year. What's next year? And you're looking at your year, your calendars. Okay, well, geez, last year I had way more stuff booked, no more albums. So you do get scared sometimes. Am I going to be busy this year? Am I only going to have a couple albums? Am I going to do 10? Am I going to do 2? Like, it's really unseen. Or like, you don't know. It's like you kind of, every year I might have a couple things lined up, but you still don't know, because there's so much stuff that just pops out last minute. Those are kind of the scary part stuff, I guess, because you kind of have to, when you do get a good project, you got to bank for the times where it may be slow, so that you're not freaking out, How am I going to pay for stuff? But yeah, I think there's always that. And also the other thing too is, how can I advance myself? That's still, even to this day, I'm always like, what next? I'm always scared to get too comfortable. You know what I mean? Yeah. Too comfortable in a sense of like, you get your thing, you do what you do, you're very at ease in what you do, that scared that where I'm going to feel it's not challenging anymore, or that I might lose that desire to do something else or do, and not necessarily do something else like go build cars, but I'm just like do something else within the studio world or gigging. Like, what else can I do next? Like, you always looking for that aspect, that to better myself. Is there other ways of, especially now with the internet, there's a lot of video content, there's a lot of stuff, there's always things, other outlooks. I'm like, well, maybe I should get more in that world of stuff, because you almost got to not reinvent yourself, but you got to be very open for how the music industry's changing. It's changed huge, even in the past 12 years since I started recording. Changed a lot. It's like I went to go buy CDs because somebody wanted me to burn them a mix on a CD, and you can't find a stack of CDs at Walmart, like literally.
Yeah.
So, but it's just an example of things are changing, and people are being able to record at home, and people are good at it too, and getting great results. So that's a scary part of the business, like.
But especially now, people are not really making money off of CDs anymore. Not too much anymore. There's very few. So if you're in the business of making these CDs, then that definitely comes the scary aspect of it. But there's always going to be people wanting to record their music in a way or another. And how can you put that in maybe a different context? Take your expertise that you learned here.
Yeah.
And in a different way. So do you have a long-term plan because of this ever-changing industry of music? Like, what do you see in 10 years,
10 years, I don't know, man. It's going to be kind of scary if you think about it. I guess I try not to overanalyze or overthink it in a negative way, because you can do that in many businesses. At the end of the day, what's the long-term plan of having a cashier? Because, hey, we're self-checking out now, right? So what is it going to be for those jobs? Is there going to be a day that you're not going to have a cashier at McDonald's, But I think you still have to wake up and still be hopeful, I guess, at the end of the day, that there's going to be still work for us in some way, shape, or form. I don't know, whether it's going to be playing more. I mean, now it's more playing live anyways for many bands. Like, where do they make their income now? It is touring. That's why you're paying the $150 ticket price for a concert. As you said it, CD sales are not there. Everybody's either on Apple Tunes or whatever, man. It's people are downloading
stuff like that.
Yeah. People are just listening to it, and the artist gets literally 0.2% of like a penny for every play. So yeah, if, as a studio owner, you kind of sit there and say, okay, well, are people actually going to still go to studios anymore and record? Or are they just going to do everything self-sufficient at the house? Because, I'm kind of scared in the sense of music's just becoming background music, in a sense of like, it's just there, because people even listen to music in a different way, right? So whether off their iPhone or just off some Bluetooth speaker they bought for $30, like that whole experience of sitting down in the living room and listening to a record and through really nice speakers, like in the old days, that's what it would be. You sit there and listen to the album and go, wow, what a production, People don't have time for that, right? So, and a lot of these big studios, you're seeing them close, like they're shutting down. So it's for sure, as a studio owner, you see that and say, okay, well, geez, where am I going to be in 10 years from now? But again, I'm still very hopeful. I'm still been very, very lucky. I count my blessings that I get to do this. You know what I mean? I think it's just important to still try to learn and be open to the changes. If you don't hop on the bandwagon with the changes, then yeah, you'll end up dying. You'll end up failing at some point, whether you accept those changes or not. I still like the fact of like, hey, let's get musicians in a room and let's do this live off the floor. I love that aspect. But unfortunately, a lot of stuff is like, okay, we did these tracks. You Dropbox a track to some guy in Montreal who's going to play the lead, and somebody else is going to do the keyboard track who lives in Halifax, yada, yada. At the end result, the listener's like, wow, this is a great album. Yeah, because you're all top guys, but nobody actually physically played in the same room together. Why? Because financially, it's just not possible. Okay. We can't charge that amount of money. If I want to get those players here, you would have to pay their drive down here. You have to pay a hotel for that keyboard player to play in your album. So as artists are making less money or no money at all, we're kind of losing a little bit of that aspect of actually like, hey, let's all go in a room together and make music. You're going to get some people that refuse to kind of hop on that bandwagon, and that's fine. But you gotta be very open to the ever changing of, well, it's the way we make music now. We are in a digital world now. It's like tape is awesome. It is. It's great. Oh, we are in a digital world. And even though you record on tape, I'll tell you one thing, it's still going to end up as an MP3 file. It still is. So once it's compressed in an MP3 file, it's an MP3 file. So whether you record it on a hard drive or on a reel-to-reel or on an ADAT, I'm sorry, still going to end up on an MP3 coming through a crappy pair of earbuds that somebody bought at Walmart for 5 cents. You know what I mean? Like, it's all that to get, if it was the old days where people actually listened to stuff and had real stereo systems in their house, yeah, then you hear the difference of like, oh, wow, this is organic and this is, but unfortunately, that's just what we're in and we don't have control on that. It's just society's gone that way. We it's like buying an album. It's like, click, oh, I just got the album done. That experience of going to a music store, I miss that. I'm going to go to Sam the Record Man or going to go to Radioland or all these places that exist at HMV and actually put my hands on something.
But who knows? Like, vinyl has been going up in recent years, right?
That's
people
true.
Are buying more and more vinyl. So maybe people like you are missing those days that you get the.
Maybe it's us. Yeah. Our generation's like, I'm going to go buy myself stereo speakers and a turntable. It's true.
Yeah.
It's true.
So who knows? Maybe in 10 years, you're recording vinyl again, right?
It could be. It totally could be. And that's it. So maybe the digital end, but that's going to be a whole new product again. Maybe we'll be going back to the old school way, and that's going to be the in thing to do.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, just be open to the change and embrace it,
So having that positive attitude, like you're saying, you just roll with the punches, you go where it is. So is it something you can develop, or you just born that way?
I think you can develop it. I think everything is about your thinking. I can wake up today and say, I'm going to have a shitty day.
Yeah.
Or I can wake up and say, today is going to be a good day. Whatever life throws at you. So when life does throw something at you, you can either be like, oh, that's it. My day's shot. That's it. And I'm done. Or he's like, oh, whatever. I'm just going to deal with it. Okay, keep on moving. I think it can be, some people are obviously more optimistic people. It's normal. Some have to work a little harder to be optimistic. It's not just, wake up and do that. But I think it's still your thinking. Your thinking's like that. And your thinking can stop you from succeeding at something or not. If I would have had much more doubt, if I would have had a little more fear in me when I came to the point of quitting a job that I've been at for 15 years, that they wanted me to stay, I would have had to have that 1% more of fear. I wouldn't have been doing this. Because there's always that doubt. There'll always be doubt and there'll always be fear. So if you're not open to just like, all right, F it, I'm just going to go for it and see what happens. And it's a weird position to be in, and scary. But if I wouldn't have made that plunge, well, we wouldn't be talking today about me doing this full time, at the end of the day. So I think it was just, having your thinking straight and reading good. Like I was at that period, I remember I was reading a lot of good books.
So what kind of books, what kind of books and resources did you use to grab that mentality or?
It's stuff like The Magic of Thinking Big. There was another one, I forget who the author was, but 12 Pillars. It was just like of people, and it's all about that, about your thinking and other people that succeeded doing their business. Not necessarily music business, just business in general. People living from their passion. I guess at the end of the day, I admired that. So when you hear it's just reading their stories. It fuels you, Be around positive people. It makes you happy, right? So it's like, if I want to be a millionaire, well, am I going to go hang out with a guy that's a millionaire and has ways, as an example, or am I going to go hang out at Tim Hortons where people are depressed and hang out with them every day? Well, you're never going to achieve to get there unless you're hanging around, you're surrounding yourself with those people. I think or reading, or I don't know. I think it's just very important, So
do you see it in your studio when you're having all these artists come into your studio, record an album? Can you see that some people have the positive mentality and seem to be getting more success? Were you able to observe that or not?
I would say so. Yeah, for sure. Especially even on the outcome of the project. If you're surrounded with that, and I try to surround the artists with musicians that are, at the end of the day, that are going to be excited to play on that artist's album. And that's very, very important. So the artists, when they come in, like, wow, man, I got this great team behind me. They're more pumped up. They're more fueled. They're more proud. So when they get out there to put it out and show it to people, then it's more of a, it's a snowball effect of good.
Yeah.
Versus if they came in and they felt it's a struggle, if they don't feel good enough. Or let's say, sometimes you do get some artists that are maybe not, as far as musicianship wise, not everybody's equal, far as in a sense of like, one could be, the amazing musician, singer, songwriter, and the other one's like an okay singer, songwriter, but they shouldn't feel any less coming into the studio. I think the experience of being able to record, it should still be a positive one for them to help motivate them to keep on going versus, it could be like, yeah, you're good, but hey, the guy we had in last week, you should hear him, man. He was awesome. Well, how did I just make that guy feel?
Yeah.
Why does he want to keep on writing right now? If so I don't know. It's like that with musicians too. It's not necessarily the best musicians that are actually playing in bands. The ones that are playing in bands are the ones that are open to learn, and the ones that are actually good enough to do the job. And sometimes putting 10 of the best musicians in a world-class musician doesn't make a great band. Sometimes it just takes one wicked musician, singer-songwriter, and 3 mediocre musicians, but the band together, it just works. And to me, that's golden, So it's just important to try to help and support and be a positive experience. I think was a key for people that I work with. I want them to feel positive in whatever way that I played a role, whether it's drumming on their album or recording it or just even talking about it, whatever the case may be, just look at the positive side of it, versus, like you said, it's getting, hey, you can download it. Because I could tell people, you know what, don't bother, go grab another job. Don't be a singer-songwriter. Just go do something else because there's no money in it. Some people will be blunt and say it that way. Like, we made the money back in the 60s and 70s and 80s when people were buying millions of albums. Those days are gone. So if you want to go out there and starve, go ahead, be a singer-songwriter. But maybe that person really wants it, and maybe there is still money out there. It's just done differently. It's just, I don't want to discourage people from their passion.
Yeah, definitely. And was it something that somebody told you at one point that kind of resonated with you? Or what would you say is the great advice that you've received at one point that stayed with you throughout your career as a musician and as a recorder?
In what I do, as far as, as being a hired musician and doing recording, I think it was just being versatile and being open. I think was always the main thing. It just embrace life. Wake up every day, ready and open arms to what's out there. I think it's don't be closed-minded was always the same. It was one thing that my dad always told me. It's like, you have to, if you want to do this, then you have to be open to different things, In a day, whether it's maybe not your favorite thing, but there's something good that's going to either come out of it or lead to the next thing, and I think it's like that in many things in life. There's always, with each door that opens, one might close, whatever the case may be, but there's always something else.
Yeah. So something like that, let's say in the music industry, you could say, well, somebody wants you to play drums on a country album. You're like, I'm not doing country, but keeping an open mind, maybe that country album can bring you other things that you're actually looking for.
That's exactly it. Fulfillment and other work, or you might end up liking country, though.
Yeah. Okay.
That's the thing. Like, I found myself, I actually enjoy many styles of music because of it. If you would ask me to play in a country band back when I was 12, I was going to no, I want to play Metallica music or Kiss. Like, and I'm still a rocker at heart because I listen to rock, many parts of my years, but I listen to all kinds of stuff. Now, a lot of times I listen to jazz and stuff that I don't necessarily record on, just as an escape or just to nourish my brain, the brain food, you know what I mean? It since with something else,
So how can you keep in learning once you are at, you're doing well? What do you do to keep learning at your craft?
I think surrounding myself with players that I look up to. There's tons of great players and tons of great singer-songwriters. Trying to surround myself and being able, make myself available. I think that's a big part. It's just make yourself available. Make myself available to want to either play with them or do shows or record their projects, even if it's stuff that I never done. Would I love to practice more? Like, if I think about practicing as a drummer, yeah, I definitely would, because I don't get enough of that, because obviously I'm working more and you're always recording or playing somebody else's music. There's a little part of me that I do miss that, actually getting better, just, woodshedding, like we said to the guy in the basement, that's woodshedding and posting YouTube videos. I'm not saying there's not an important part to that. There is an important part to that. But I think everything plays a role. You can't have your cake and eat it neither. I think it's just try to find a balance somewhere so that you can kind of learn and grow,
Right.
It's just...
So have you always been so busy, or did you have time where you had to kind of fight procrastination? And do you still kind of deal with?
I still do sometimes, yeah. And it's easy to procrastinate sometimes, and I have procrastination, tendencies. Sometimes I'm like, I'll do that later, I got that. It's just normal, but I still have to fight that sometimes. And it's maybe more, because obviously working in the studio, like, I'm not always surrounded by the artists. I'm not always surrounded by the musicians that are here where, you get the social aspect, right? You're working, you're tracking a fiddle track or you're tracking a guitar track. You're in the moment, right? There is the aspect of, okay, now I have to mix this. I have to mix the album and make it sound what the client's looking for, that project's going to sound like. Well, when you do that alone, so those are the tendencies sometimes where I find I can procrastinate. I mean, it's like, you're in the middle of a mix or you're bouncing down a mix. All of a sudden it's like, I'm going to check my email. And next thing you know, 30 minutes later, like, get off your phone. You know what I mean? So, because either you checked your email or you responded to a text or a message, and next thing you know, you end up seeing a news feed and then you're watching a video on something or whatever. So I tend to have to take the phone out of my control room and put it in the kitchen so it's not there's distraction, right? I think it's kind of society of today, because whether you're at the grocery store and you're waiting in line, we all have the tendencies like, I'll check my email or I'll check my... So sometimes I have to kind of, or like I said, the scary part of, when you get too comfortable, sometimes I get those periods like, hey, what next? I still want the studio to evolve and also evolve as a musician. I still want it. I guess it's always chasing, and it's no different than somebody just plays live or even being a master carpenter where you're building furniture. I think we're all as people, there's always that chasing of excitement. How do I keep it exciting? Is always, right. If there's a challenge, that's what it is, because it's easy. It's like, if you're recording the same style of music where it's sometimes like, okay, I need to do. So there's always that, or how do I make mixing exciting for me again, or whatever. So it's whether it's bettering yourself or trying, by trying a different plugin or a different reverb or whatever the case may be, whatever it is that tickles your fancy to make it exciting. Those are probably obstacles I think that anybody can, that works. How do you keep your job exciting? Whether it's like your passion, try to, those are little obstacles that you got to kind of snap yourself out of sometimes. Pinch yourself and say, hey man, you got it. You're lucky. Keep on doing it. That alone should be exciting, that you get to wake up and do what you love doing,
But it is something. Just a few episodes ago with Mark Black, he said that if working in your passion was hard, he says, yes, it's work. If you ask anyone, are you passionate about your kids? Everybody's going to say yes. But then you ask them, is it easy?
No.
Nobody's going to,
It's not. No.
So even if you are passionate about what you do, you're still struggling with procrastination. There's still a work aspect to it that you need discipline to do, right?
Yeah, and everybody you work with, as much as I try to make it a pleasant experience and an exciting one for people that I work with, not necessarily every single one is necessarily, everybody that I get the chance to work with is not necessarily easy for me in a sense of like, it's a piece of cake. This is easy. There's work involved in that because there's also the pressure of, the onus is on you to make my album be great too, sometimes if you're producing it or whatever. So there's a labor of love in there too. And if it's, let's say you're working on a project that musically that you may not be as familiar with, you know what I mean? In a sense of like, it might be a different style of music. There's the little scared, it's like, okay, this guy's trusting me with his craft. not necessarily music that I'm really familiar with, but you're trying to be open and learn. But at the end of the day, there's a labor of love in that. So as much as you're having fun, there's also that it can be tough sometimes, because it's not something it's not autopilot. That's right. I got this. Some music you're like, a piece of cake. I can do this in my sleep and I drink 10 coffees and 20 beers and it'll be great. You know what I mean? But there's other stuff, or you can work with people that are more opinionated or a little more, not everybody's easygoing. Even though I might be easygoing, not everybody's easygoing that you work with. So you got to be able to, I got to play chameleon too sometimes. You got to try to be in their circle, in their way of thinking. Some people are more meticulous or they might be focusing on something that's really to me, like, really? You hear a problem there? I don't hear a problem with that at all. Or vice versa, right? Some people might pinpoint defects or they're looking at their faults. You know what I mean? So it's like try to guide them through. So there's also, even though you do what you love doing, there's still work. Being on the road is still work. I love to tour. I love to be able to go play gigs and experience the whole road thing. But there's work. It's not every day that's like, oh, great, I'm in another hotel room today. And not every hotel room is going to be, the Ritz-Carlton or whatever. It's part of it. You're not always eating, fine cuisine. Yeah. Sometimes the road food that you're eating is, chez Jeannette somewhere in Niguac, and that's the only restaurant there is. So, what are you having? Clubhouse sandwich and fries. Yeah. Really, you like to have a good, healthy meal, as we're getting older, to try to keep ourselves, but sometimes it is what it is. So I can either complain about it and be whiny or just say, hey, roll with the punches. Maybe tomorrow we'll be in a city where I can get a salad. You know what I mean? Like, that's how you got to look at it.
Awesome. So as a closing remark, if anybody wants to make a living in music, either maybe recording or playing music, what's your top advice that you give to a new musician coming in to record an album, being a bit unsure about the industry? What kind of wisdom can you impart on these people?
You got to follow your heart at the end of the day. I mean, you have to be true to yourself. I mean, there's artists, you'll see it. I think I'm going to write this music here because I think that's what's going to be popular. Yeah, but you're not being true to yourself, because if you do that and you fail, not only have you failed in a sense of like nobody bought your album and liked it, but you don't even like it. So I think it's being true to yourself, and it's going to be scary sometimes. Is there a guarantee? There's never any guarantee. I don't think there's any guarantee in anything in life, but there is a guarantee if you work hard at what it is that you want to accomplish. Never give up. That's guaranteed. You can't give up on it, because when you do, that's what it is. But be true to yourself in that sense as an artist or a musician or whatever the case may be, and be open to learn, take it in, be a sponge is very important. Like, there's so many things I find, like if I could tell you this is the key. Yeah. There's no key. It's just you have to take it all in, the good and the bad and the ugly. It's all there, because you're gonna cross paths with people that might jade you to think of like, I ain't working in this industry again, because you end up working with somebody that just jaded you of whatever. It could be a producer, it could be a musician that played in one of your bands. It could be somebody at your gig saying, I don't like your music, you suck, get off stage. And that's going to happen. But the ones that succeeded at the end of the day are the ones that can look past that and still look at what it is that you want to do and stay true to yourself and still move forward and follow your passion. That's,
awesome.
That's the key, man.
Awesome.
Stick with it.
Thank you, Danny. I really appreciate your time coming on the show. I think you brought a lot of value, and I think people are going to enjoy this. So.
I hope so.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a good day. Thanks for sticking around till the end of the interview with Danny Bourgeois. This was my second time interviewing Danny, as I interviewed him before for a French show I do, and he's always such a fun time to be around, so I really hope that you enjoyed the interview as much as I enjoyed making it. Being such a fun guy, it's easy to see why networking has done so much for him in the music world. But really, I'm surprised that more people don't mention how networking and the people they've met impacted their business or their success a whole lot, because I've read so many things that mention how networking is really important. And there's something that says that you are the average of the 5 people you hang out with the most. And I think that's very strong in the way that if you hang out with successful people, chances are that you'll find success as well. So I can totally see how getting out there and playing in front of people and meeting different people who play music in your local area is really good to establish yourself as a musician. It's also not only about going to the gigs. It was fun to see the role that the music store played in Danny's career, and how going to the music store and networking there, as well as working there and meeting all sorts of different people who played music in the area, played a really crucial role in his success. Lastly, a key for all this networking to go well is, like Danny mentioned, is you want to have a positive attitude and be a team player, because that's the kind of people that people want to be around, right? That being said, I really enjoyed Danny's closing remark and how he said you have to be true to yourself. And that makes me wonder about the whole networking spot, right? If you're really someone who's introverted and not a social butterfly, to try to force that, that's not really being true to yourself. So maybe for you, the YouTube route and trying to network online would be much better suited and would actually work better for you versus Danny, who is a social butterfly and it doesn't have that kind of problem of going in person and talking with different people. So I am curious about that, on if it does work out for people who are naturally introverted to push themselves into network, if that's not really their thing. So I'm wondering, what do you guys think? Do you think someone should really push himself to be outgoing and to go out and network with people if that's not really who he is inside? Or do you think that maybe there's other ways around that kind of networking problem, that if you are an introverted person, you can do it online or do it in other ways that will work best for you? So I hope you enjoyed the show. If you did, I would really appreciate it if you would share it with one person. If you shared it with two, I would love you. And I really want to connect with you guys. So if you want to join the private Facebook group, you can find it at hiredbypassion.com/Facebook. Join the group and connect with me. I really want to know what you guys are struggling with and how I can help you reach your goals. So thanks, and catch you next week. Thanks for listening to the Hired by Passion podcast. If you enjoyed the show, I would greatly appreciate a 5-star rating and review on iTunes.